Hello and welcome to another planning appeal case study video. I'm John Peters, and in this video I'm going to explain how we overcame a recent refusal by Dorset Council for one of our clients. This planning appeal was to overcome the refusal of a single storey and two-storey extension that was refused by the local authority, being Dorset Planning Department. Our client was initially booked in for a free no obligation consultation to run through the refusal reasons that had been used by Dorset Council and to evaluate if an appeal was viable or if an alternative option was be best suited for them. The free no obligation consultation found that the case was viable for appeal to the Planning Inspectorate, taking away the decision process from Dorset Planning Department. This case was refused by Dorset Council for the following reasons. The proposed extensions, having regard to their disproportionate design, raised ridge line and use of set forward dormers, cumulatively result in an incongruous, bulky and visually dominant development, lacking subservience and sympathetic integration to the host dwelling, which would be at odds with the wider area and greater landscape value landscape plan. The submitted flood risk assessment fails to identify suitable mitigation measures for the site's flooding constraints, being within the groundwater emergence zone, which may mean that infiltrated drainage would not be effective in dealing with additional surface water runoff from the proposed extensions. No information concerning the existing or proposed forms of sustainable drainage system to serve the proposal have been provided. The application is not supported by a certificate by a certified biodiversity plan. As such, it cannot be determined that there would be no harm to biodiversity, as the site and the opportunities for biodiversity mitigation and gain in the around the site can be delivered. The planning inspector in this case identified the main reasons for the case were the effects upon the proposal for 1, the character and appearance of the host dwelling and wider area, 2, flooding, and 3, biodiversity. The inspector stated the following in the appeal decision. In relation to character and appearance, the extension to the north of the building would merely project to the two-storey form of the dwelling over an existing single-storey element. The new dormer to the side west-facing elevation of this new addition would match those that already exist to the side of the building in terms of alignment, proportions and appearance. This part of the proposal would appear as a modest and seamless addition. The raised ridgeline to the west wing, together with the twin 1.5-storey gable features to the north elevation, would undeniably change the appearance of this part of the building, but increasing its scale and prominence to a degree, but not significantly. So in my judgment, moreover, the dwelling already displays elements of its evolution over time. This part of the appeal proposal would simply add to its story by remodelling a later part of the original dwelling with matching materials and proposed throughout. I find the proposed changes to Woodside would appear neither jarring or incongruous within their context. Despite the step change proposed to the ridgeline along the western wing, the dwelling would remain its low-rise, shallow form and horizontal emphasis to its proportions. When glimpsed from Daggons Road, 2 new dormers to the south elevation would be seen to match a series of existing. Contrary to the council's assertions, I find that these changes would be difficult to discern at a distance from this aspect of along the busy B0378. Although the gable features to the opposite side of the building would be to the property's front elevation, these would be effectively inward facing and seen only from a public domain along the nearby right of way at a restricted angle of sight, and only then through extensive amounts of foliage. Rather than seeking to mimic the dormers to this side of the building, their form would introduce new features, but which would reasonably assimilate themselves into individualistic style of the dwelling. The raised ridgeline to the west wing together with the twin 1.5-storey gable features to the north elevation, would undeniably change the appearance of this part of the building by increasing its scale and prominence to a degree, but not significant to my judgment. Moreover, the dwelling already displays elements of evolution over time. This part of the appeal proposal would simply add to its story by remodelling a later part of the dwelling with matching materials proposed throughout. I find the proposed changes to Woodside would appear neither jarring nor incongruous with their context. The space around the building would be largely unaltered, with the changes to the dwelling that would be compatible with the existing. I'm unable to identify any harm to the rural woodland landscape of the wider area. In relation to flooding, the inspector stated the council asserts that the site is in an area identified as being high risk from groundwater flooding due to its location within the groundwater emergence zone. However, this is not supported by any substantive evidence. On the other hand, the appellant's submission included advice from the Environmental Agency that the area is within flood zone 1 with a low probability of flooding. It is accepted that the Environmental Agency flood map, which informs this advice, shows river and sea flooding data only and does not include other sources of flooding. But the appellant has submitted additional evidence to show that the UK Environmental Agency Check Your Long-Term Flood Risk service states that the yearly chance of flooding at Woodside from surface water flooding and from rivers and the sea are both very low. In addition, the online check advises flooding from groundwater is unlikely in this area. Moreover, the council's concerns over increased flood risk is based upon the impact of additional surface water runoff from the proposed extensions. In this case, the extensions are principally over existing buildings' footprint. Any additional surface water runoff as this result of this extension would be negligible. In respect to the biodiversity, the inspector stated the planning application was accompanied by a preliminary roost appraisal and a bat activity report. This report was updated on the 11th of June 2024, one day before the council's decision notice. The report informed that the property was found to support one-day roost for low numbers of bats and 3-day roosts for low numbers of other bats. As a consequence, the report included a mitigation, compensation and biodiversity enhancement strategy. This was submitted to Dorset Council and approved by their Natural Environment team as a certified biodiversity plan on the 4th of July 2024. The inspector clearly read all the documents submitted as part of the appeal and the appeal statement in detail. The appeal also benefited from the planning inspector's site visit, which is essential for appeals like this one. Many of you who have had similar refusals are repeatedly stated that you've had little or no correspondence throughout the application process, and the first thing you knew was receiving the refusal notice from the council, and in some cases when you receive a letter from ourselves. We completely understand that the planning process can be very frustrating and costs involved, the time it takes and so on, but do remember we deal with this on a daily basis for others just like yourself. With planning appeals experience matters, our specialist team who handle over 2.5% of all planning appeals in England and Wales that are currently produced and submitted, start by producing a comprehensive and robust appeal statement that in this specific case covered 27 pages and just over 5,500 words. It is important to detail in the appeal statement where the local authority failed in their assessment of the case and how, where possible, both local and national policies apply in favour of appeal. Additionally, if possible, bringing in similar cases that the Planning Inspectorate found in favour of at appeal. Obviously, with the back catalogue we have of wins, we're able to use these cases and what the inspector said in them as additional argument to support the case we are working on. Once an appeal statement is completed, we send the documents to our client asking them to check that they are happy for us to submit the case. If we need to add any additional information, that the client may have forgotten to previously supply is done at this point, and then the case is submitted to the Inspectorate. It's vitally important that all documents and responses are submitted on time throughout the process, as failure to do so will result in the appeal not being successful. Something we hear about often when people attempt an appeal for a first time. Always ensure you use a professional who has considerable experience of appeals. It is worth asking them for some recent successful planning appeal case studies like you find on our website. Due to the large number of cases we represent, we have a dedicated team that liaises with the Planning Inspectorate on a daily basis. For this appeal, the independent planning inspector from the Planning Inspectorate visited the site on the 19th of December, and we're pleased to confirm that the appeal was upheld and the permission was granted on the 9th of January in a 3-page appeal decision notice. If you'd like to find out if we can help you with your planning appeal, complete our online form on our website www.planningappealsuk.com, and our new case support team will arrange for a free no obligation consultation with one of our planning appeal assessment professionals. Thank you for taking the time to watch this planning appeal case study video, and I look forward to producing another one very shortly. Bye for now.